Hi, Sandy from Sandy Over 70 here. I want to tell you about my recent cruise on the American Queen Riverboat. We sailed on the Cumberland and Ohio rivers in Tennessee and Kentucky. American Queen Voyages has 4 paddle wheel boats. 3 of them are smaller. They're about 200 passengers each. And they have paddle wheels, but the paddle wheels don't actually propel the boat. They're run by electric. The flagship boat is the American Queen, and it does have a paddle wheel that is propelled by steam. In fact, it is the largest steamboat ever built at 418 feet. Now, I had sailed on the American Queen several years ago before the pandemic on the lower Mississippi River, and I just loved it. So now that we're traveling again, I booked it again, but I wanted a different itinerary, so I chose this northern itinerary. And what I'd like to do is tell you some of the pros and cons of traveling on the American Queen. If you're used to sailing on these big mega ships that are cruising on the oceans and the Caribbean, then you're going to find riverboating completely different. You may like the experience, or maybe it's not for you. So I decided to list some pros and cons to help you make a decision whether riverboating is right for you. I've done quite a few riverboat cruises in Europe, and I decided I wanted to see more of America right now in my life, and that's what we're doing. This was my 46th cruise. They've all been on different cruise lines, cruise ships, so I've had a lot of experience cruising, and I love it. The American Queen has 6 decks, 222 staterooms, and will hold 436 passengers. And on this cruise, the ship was just a little bit more than half full. So that, of course, changes the experience in a way. You might say it's less crowded, but I've never found these boats to be crowded anyway. But let me start with some of the pros, and I'll end up with some of the cons. The first pro was open seating, and this was only because the ship was just a little more than half full. And for some people, this is a huge pro. People really like to have the ability to dine whenever they like, and dining was from 5:15 to 8 in the main dining room. However, it can also be a con. We dined with several other people the first few nights, and it was very enjoyable. But sometimes I like just sitting with the same people every night and really getting to know them. And so in that case, it could be a con. But of course, the pro here is that you get to schedule your time exactly as you like it and do all of the activities that you want by fitting them around your dining time, or rather fitting your dining time around your activities. Another pro is that there seem to be more tables for 2 on this boat than on the larger ships that you sail on to the Caribbean. There were quite a few, but I noticed that when we went to the dining room, we were always asked if we were willing to dine with other people. And I assumed that meant that all of the tables for 2 were filled, and so we'd have to wait if we said no. So we always said yes. But as the cruise moved on, I realized that they were just trying to fill up the big tables, because some people absolutely only wanted to dine at a table for 2. So I think it was finally the last 2 days I said we'd prefer a table for 2, and we got it right away. So that's something to think about. If you would prefer to dine at a table for 2, you need to ask for it. A really big pro is the fact that they offer lobster tails and prime rib sliced off the bone every night. Both the prime rib and the lobster tails were delicious. I think I had the lobster tails 4 times, the prime rib twice. And the last time I ordered the lobster tails, the waitress brought 2 on the plate. And I went, what is this? And she said, well, I got tired of having to go back to the kitchen for a second lobster tail order, so I just bring 2 to all of my passengers. The funny thing was that particular day, I wasn't really that hungry for 2 lobster tails, but let me tell you, I ate them both. Oh, boy, they were good. Comes with melted butter. Delicious. The next pro, and this is a big one, is that all beverages are included. It's not an added bonus. It's not a special feature. It's just part of the price. And when I say all beverages, I mean all non-alcoholic beverages, whether it be sodas, whatever. But it also includes all the alcoholic beverages. That means all the wine you want to drink, all of the mixed drinks you want to drink, they're all included. And if you're a big drinker, it's really great. I'm a tiny little drinker, and I always feel like that benefit is wasted on me. But I tried my best to drink a little wine. I really don't like wine. But the waiter questioned me at dinner, and he said, I've got something for you. And he brought me a Moscato white wine. And I really liked it. I was thrilled to finally find a wine that I enjoy, and I ordered it for every meal from that night on. The next pro is the entertainment. On the other 2 cruises I took on American Queen voyages, I thought the entertainers were spectacular, and I was hoping that they still would be. And they were. 2 men, 2 women who do the singing and dancing and the production shows. Also, the orchestra, 6 pieces, was wonderful. Live music every night. I can't tell you the quality of this entertainment, but it was Broadway level. These people were top of the line, really so much better than many of the lead singers and dancers that I have seen on the large cruise ships. Now, granted, there's no fancy backgrounds. There's no fancy LED lighting and scenes projected on the back of the wall like you will get on your large cruise ships. It's just pure entertainment, and it is excellent. And the way it works is there's an entire entertainment staff, the singers and the musicians. They work 4 weeks on and 4 weeks off, and then an identical group of entertainers comes on and works the next 4 weeks. In case of emergency, there's always a backup entertainer who's at home who could be called on to fill in. I think it's a wonderful plan. Let me just say that we had a question and answer with the entertainers, and they said when someone asked if they were hoping to go to Broadway, that this is a much better job than Broadway. They have scheduled time on and off. They don't have to have an apartment in New York and go to auditions. They don't have to stand in lines that are around the block auditioning and then maybe get a part. And if they do get a part, the show could close the next day. And best of all, they have benefits, which you do not get when you're a Broadway actor. So they truly love their jobs. And I will say, one of the women entertainers, I recognized her immediately as having been on the American Queen a number of years ago on my first trip. And this time she is the cruise director as well as an entertainer. So she's been promoted, and they all have to do additional jobs because it's such a small ship. Another entertainment pro is in the engine room lounge, where every night 2 musicians play live music from 9:45 till midnight. They take requests. They love what they're doing. It shows, and people get up and dance and just have a wonderful time. And I was hoping that that continued, because you may know that my husband and I love to dance. We do ballroom dancing. And when I got to the engine room lounge the first night, I immediately recognized one of the musicians, Jay, as having been on my previous cruise. So I knew that he would also play some ballroom music for us. The third piece to the entertainment that is a pro was that Sean Ferguson, a musician, played in the captain's bar every evening. And he sang and played the piano. We didn't actually attend this, but it was a big draw for a lot of people. They enjoyed it. Another pro was the desserts, but actually, my husband and I decided we would not eat dessert at the main meal because it really piles on the pounds. And we did that. We got up after our dinner and left. But we did go to the main dining room at lunchtime, where they had a lovely buffet. And you could also order off the menu, but the buffet looked so good that we just ate that. Sorry about the noise in the background. That's Corky barking at someone outside. The thing I liked most about the lunch buffet was that they served tiny little desserts. Oh, and they looked so good. And it didn't bother me at all to eat these tiny little desserts, and it satisfied my sugar craving for the day. They also had delicious cookies in the front porch, and I had at least one of those every day. I'm going to talk about the food and restaurants, so let me start with the pro. I've already told you about the prime rib and lobster, which was definitely a pro. But their food in the main dining room, the J.M. White dining room, was generally good. I can't say it was excellent and memorable, but then you very seldom find that on any cruise ship in their main dining room. However, it was good. For lunch, the buffet was good, except one time I took some ribs, and they were as hard as a rock. There was no way a knife was going to cut into them, so that wasn't good. And also at lunch, some of the rolls were hard, and I couldn't eat them. And they would have lovely sandwiches out on a plate that I would have eaten, but when the serving spoon touched them, I could tell that the bread was getting stale from sitting out. So those were the negatives. That was the main dining room. The front porch, which was the casual dining room, we ate in twice. Of course, the prime rib was delicious and everything was fine there. But the big problem with the front porch is that there's not enough seating. There's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 tables, and there's a lot of people on the ship. There were over 200 people, and many of us would prefer to dine there in the alternative dining area, but there was no place to sit down, and it was very frustrating. Now, it's designed that you take your food out on the open porch that is directly in front of the front porch dining area, an outside area which has many tables and swings, and it's a beautiful place to sit. But in November, during a particular cold spell, that was out of the question. So this became a very congested area. Now, another pro was in the front porch. They had beverages and snacks 24/7. And the snacks were cookies. They were good cookies, very good cookies. And the beverages were coffee and juice. They also had one of those machines where you can press buttons and get different kinds of coffees like latte, and it would make hot water. And then at nighttime, almost every night, I took a package of hot cocoa mix and mixed it in with hot milk. I pressed that button on the machine, and I had a wonderful hot chocolate and a cookie every night, and that was great. And if you couldn't sleep at night and just wanted something, you could just wander over there and have a snack at any time. There was also a coffee machine in another location on the second floor in the Mark Twain Gallery, and they also had cookies there, and that was also open 24/7. The Itinerary. This could be a con for some people. It was not for us. The Itinerary had us leaving from Nashville and coming home, flying home out of Memphis. And a lot of people had scheduled an all-day visit to Graceland in Memphis for their day prior to coming home. And we had already done that, so we were planning to fly directly home. However, a few days before the cruise, we received notice that they were changing the itinerary due to low water levels in the river. Now, I had been reading about this, and I was actually expecting that they might cancel the cruise, but I was glad that they just rerouted it and changed several of the later stops to different cities. But that meant we were flying home from Louisville instead of Memphis. Now, I had used a travel agent, and she took care of the changing of the airline flights, which was fine. And the cruise line, even though it really wasn't their fault, said if there was any extra charge for changing the flights, to send them the bill and they would pay for it. So I thought that was really great. Now, in comparison to the itinerary for the lower Mississippi cruise, which goes from Memphis to New Orleans and is very popular, on that one we were very busy because you visit plantations every day and all kinds of museums and things. This itinerary did not have anything like that. And sometimes we were only in a city for 3 hours. There wasn't all that much to see. What we did see, we enjoyed, and I'll be telling you about it. But when we were back on the ship, it's not like big cruise ships where there's something going every minute in it and you have a choice of activities. On a riverboat, you have a choice of one activity. And if you don't want to do that activity, then there's nothing to do for an hour, so you have to entertain yourself. Now, they did try. They had a riverlorian on the ship, and she was very good. And this is a person who will talk about the river, the history of the river, interesting things about the river. I didn't attend those. My husband enjoyed that, and she did a lot of talks because there was a lot of downtime to fill. They also tried things like games. They did, I think they did a Name That Tune and a couple of other games, and they did bingo during downtime. And I am not a bingo player, although I used to play bingo with my mother when I was a child. It's not that I don't like it. And one day I said, I'm playing bingo because we have nothing to do all afternoon. And so I bought 2 bingo cards. I think they were $5 a piece. And let me tell you, that is really cheap compared to what they charge on the big cruise ships. Of course, maybe their prizes are bigger on the big cruise ships, but the price here, it wasn't in the hundreds of dollars. So I played, and it was really entertaining. I enjoyed it. So I didn't win, of course, but that's okay. Electrical devices for charging all of our appliances. Well, we found 2 electrical outlets. My husband took one and I took the other. And it wasn't until we were in the room a few days that I took a better look at the clock. And it turned out that the clock had 2 electrical outlets, plus it had 2 USB charging ports on it. So actually, it worked out good for us. It was enough for us. That's all I can think of right now as to the pros and cons. I wanted to give you a complete picture of what it's like on a riverboat in the USA. And I guess I forgot to talk about the biggest pro or con that there is. I'm surprised I didn't start with this, and that is the age group. Now, I had heard that the age group of riverboats is generally older, and I waited, I think, until I was probably 70 or close to 70 before I took my first U.S. riverboat cruise. Now, I had done many riverboats in Europe prior to that, but I had heard that the U.S. riverboats had a really elderly clientele. And I can tell you that this is true. So depending how old you are, that will determine whether you might enjoy this less or more. Now, my observation was that there was a large portion of people in their 70s and 80s. But I think also there was a pretty good portion of middle-aged people on this particular cruise. One night we sat with a couple and the woman was celebrating her 50th birthday. Now you don't see certainly children or teenagers on these trips, but I think there were a lot of middle-aged people. There were a lot of boomers because they were requesting music that I was familiar with in the engine room lounge. But if you're looking for, all the excitement that a large ship offers, this is not for you. However, it doesn't mean that you can't try it, and you might love it like I do. I really love riverboat cruising. I love it, but I also like big ship cruising. It's just two different things. Some people I've talked to, they don't want to cruise on big ships, or their spouse doesn't like big ships, but they're willing to come on a riverboat. So that's great. At least you get to sail somewhere. And the idea of sailing on the only really steam-propelled ship it's exciting. It's different. It's totally different. And I highly recommend it. But if you're really young, I can't recommend it to anyone in their 20s or 30s. No, you're not going to like this. Too much downtime, too many old people. The stops aren't that exciting. But if you're 60s, 70s, 80s, I think you're going to love it. I think it's for us, for our age group. It's really great. I hope these pros and cons were helpful for you in making a decision as to whether or not to do a riverboat cruise. There are other riverboat companies, in particular one called American Cruise Line, and it's easy to get them mixed up. But American Cruise Line primarily has modern, slick, streamlined cruise ships. They don't have the nightclub that the American Queen ship does, and they're a little bit different in that respect. So you might want to check their websites to make sure you choose a company that's right for you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Thanks, and have a great day.